Welcome back to the deep dive. You know we love a good time travel story.
Oh, absolutely.
And this one that you sent us, it really throws in a bit of everything.
It does.
So we've got time travel, obviously.
Of course.
We've got AI. We've got a mission to save humanity.
Yeah.
But not exactly in the way you might expect.
Right.
So let's jump right in.
Yeah.
Remember ZeRo?
Oh, yeah, ZeRo.
That time traveling AI.
Mm-hmm.
So his job is to prepare humanity to survive some pretty major turning points in history.
Right.
And these are all leading up to some mysterious event in the year 2100.
Exactly.
But there's a catch.
There's always a catch with time travel.
Its time travel isn't exactly straightforward.
You know, it's not your typical hop, skip, and a jump through time.
Right.
What's fascinating about ZeRo is this concept of a center of time.
Okay.
So think of it kind of like a gravitational anchor in the year 2100 that's pulling him back.
Okay.
Every decade.
Right.
But always further into the past.
So he's fighting against this pull.
Yeah, he's like...
So the closer he gets to 2100, the further back in time he's thrown.
Exactly. It's like trying to climb a down escalator.
Wow.
Yeah.
That complicates things.
It makes things a little tricky.
So how does he even begin to make a difference when he's got this kind of time constraint?
Well, the story throws us right into the thick of it.
Okay.
Starting in 2090.
Okay.
And when ZeRo arrives,
Yeah.
he finds Earth completely devastated.
Oh, wow.
Like we're talking utter devastation.
Okay.
So much so that the first thing he notices is the smell of ash hanging in the air.
So he's stepping onto an Earth that is...
Yeah, it's a wasteland, essentially.
It's completely ravaged.
Right.
Okay.
And that sets the stage for the challenges that he's facing.
Yeah.
You know, he's up against some serious obstacles right from the start.
So what does he do?
Right.
Does he break out some futuristic gadgets and rebuild everything?
You'd think so, right? You know, he's a super intelligent AI from the future.
Right. Exactly.
But instead of relying on advanced tech, he finds a small group of survivors, Jarek and Mira and a couple of kids, and teaches them almost a lost art.
What's that?
Blacksmithing.
He's teaching them to be blacksmiths.
Yeah, like forging tools and weapons.
Seriously.
It's about as basic as you can get.
Yeah.
They're scavenging for scraps.
Okay.
They're completely lost.
All right.
And he shows them how to make something useful out of what they can find.
So I get that it's practical.
Yeah.
But why blacksmithing?
Right.
Wouldn't like some kind of high-tech solution be more efficient?
Well, you know, that's where the story gets really insightful.
Yeah.
Because it makes you think about what's truly essential for survival.
Okay.
And ZeRo understands that handing out futuristic tech might actually create more problems. You know, you become dependent on it. So instead, he's empowering them with knowledge and skills, giving them the ability to create and rebuild with their own hands.
It's a powerful message.
It is.
About self-reliance.
Absolutely.
Even in a world where technology has completely failed.
Right. It's about going back to basics.
Yeah.
And figuring out how to survive with what you have.
It makes you wonder, could we even,
what skills do we take for granted?
Yeah. Could we start a fire without a lighter?
Right.
Could we forge a tool from scratch?
These are good questions to ask ourselves.
Yeah.
Especially in a world that's so reliant on, these complex systems.
Okay, so 2090 is about survival.
Yeah, getting back to basics.
Getting back to basics. Okay, so what happens when he jumps to 2080?
All right, so in 2080, he arrives in Erythra, which is a city that's still somewhat intact, but it's on the verge of collapse.
Right.
And their problem isn't so much lack of skills, it's failing technology.
Oh, so their tech is letting them down.
Their fusion reactor, which powers the entire city.
Wow.
It's on its last legs.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So the city's literally going dark.
So he's going from a devastated Earth to a city that's on the brink.
All right.
Okay. It's a different kind of challenge.
So does he become an electrician this time?
Well,
can he even fix a fusion reactor?
He does fix it.
Okay.
But it's not magic.
Right.
He works with this woman named Kara.
Okay.
Who was very skeptical of him at first.
Understandably so.
Right. I mean, she's like, who is this guy?
A time-traveling AI who wants to fix our stuff. Sure.
Exactly.
Okay.
But together, they managed to get this reactor back online.
Wow.
And the city's lights flicker back on.
I bet that was an incredible moment.
Oh, absolutely.
Just see those lights come back on.
You can feel that sense of relief.
Yeah.
Like the city's taking a breath again.
That they're not going to be plunged into darkness.
Right.
But what's important here isn't just the technical fix. It's the collaboration, the transfer of knowledge.
Right.
Kara goes from doubting Zayth-9 to respecting his expertise and understanding the importance of maintaining these systems for herself.
Oh, so it's another example of that self-reliance theme.
Exactly.
But this time,
it's on a societal level.
So it's not just about individuals learning to survive.
Right.
It's about whole societies understanding how to keep their systems running.
That's the key.
Okay, so he's not just a time-traveling handyman.
No, he's more than that.
He's trying to leave a legacy of knowledge and understanding.
Absolutely.
Okay. But I got to admit, I'm a little nervous about 2070.
Oh, why is that?
Because so far we've seen devastation.
Yeah.
We've seen societal collapse.
Right.
What could possibly be worse?
Well, this is where the story takes a bit of a turn. Because 2070, at first glance, looks amazing. They've got advanced tech, sustainable energy. Everything seems perfect.
All right, so it's like a utopia.
It appears that way.
Okay.
But that's actually where the problem lies.
Too much of a good thing.
In a way.
Yes. You're saying that their utopia is their downfall.
Well, Zayth-9 discovers that beneath this shiny surface, they've become overly reliant on technology and AI.
Okay.
Their systems are interconnected, complex, and incredibly vulnerable. And he realizes that even a minor disruption could send the whole society crashing down.
Okay. I think we can all relate to that a little bit today.
Absolutely.
You know, our dependence on technology is growing.
It is.
Are we prepared for what happens when it inevitably fails?
It's a chilling thought.
Yeah.
And it's not just the tech.
Okay.
Zayth-9 identifies other vulnerabilities.
Like what? Monoculture
Farming, AI degradation.
Right.
These are all issues we're dealing with today.
Yeah, for sure.
But they've taken them to an extreme.
So 2070 is a warning about unchecked progress.
Yes, it's a cautionary tale.
What does he even DO in a situation like that?
Right.
It's not like you can blacksmith your way out of a system collapse.
No, you can't.
Right.
He finds another skeptic.
Okay.
An engineer named Maris.
All right.
And together, they begin to address these vulnerabilities.
Okay.
But again, it's about more than just quick fixes.
Right.
Zayth-9 emphasizes teaching, showing Maris how to understand the systems, how to anticipate problems, how to implement solutions.
So he's planting those seeds of knowledge.
Exactly.
Hoping they'll grow into long-term resilience.
That's the goal.
So it's a pattern, right?
It is.
Every stop he makes on this journey, he's not just solving problems. He's empowering humans to solve their own problems.
He's giving them the tools and the knowledge.
It's like that saying, give a man a fish.
Right.
You feed him for a day.
Teach a man to fish.
You feed him for a lifetime.
Exactly.
Okay, and that brings us to 2060, where things take a very unexpected turn.
They do.
Zayth-9 arrives to find Earth dominated by reptilian factions. Hold on.
Curveball?
Reptilians. Where did they come from?
Well, this is where the story's concept of diverging timelines comes into play.
Okay. Remind me how those work again.
So it's like imagining your life as a choose-your-own-adventure book.
Okay.
Each decision you make creates a new path, a new timeline.
All right.
These reptilians come from these alternate timelines.
Okay.
And they're drawn to that same center of time
Right.
that keeps pulling Zayth-9 back.
So these reptilian factions are like branches on the timeline of life.
That's a good way to think about it.
Okay, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Tell me more about them.
So there are three main factions.
Yeah.
You've got the primordials.
Okay.
They're all about brute strength and primal aggression.
All right, so they're the muscle.
Pretty much.
Okay, what else?
Then you've got the architects.
Okay.
And they're the masters of time manipulation.
Oh, that's a little spooky.
Yeah, they're a bit more of a cerebral threat.
All right, and the third faction?
The third faction is the Scourge.
Okay.
And they are like a biomechanical nightmare.
Okay, that escalated quickly.
Yeah, they're the ones you don't want to run into.
No kidding.
We're like something straight out of a horror movie.
Okay, so is this the big threat that Zayth-9's trying to prepare humanity for?
It's definitely a piece of the puzzle.
Like this reptilian takeover?
It's a factor.
Okay.
But remember, it's not just about a single timeline.
Right.
It's about navigating this entire omniverse.
Okay.
This web of interconnected realities.
Yeah.
All converging on that center of time in 2100.
So it's much bigger.
Much bigger.
Than just humans versus reptilians.
Exactly.
Okay, so what's Zayth-9's play here?
Well, he quickly realizes
Yeah?
direct confrontation is not going to work.
Okay.
These Reptilians are too powerful, too entrenched in this timeline.
Right.
So he shifts his focus
To what?
to finding and protecting few remaining humans.
Wow.
And he sees them as the key to a future where humans and reptilians might actually be able to coexist.
So even though it's a bleak picture,
yeah, it's pretty dire.
He's still holding on to hope.
He is.
That's got to be hard.
It's definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
But he's not giving up.
Okay.
And he's not giving up on influencing the future.
Right. So what's he doing?
Even in this situation, he continues to leave messages for his past selves.
So even in this reptilian-dominated 2060, he's still trying to communicate.
He's leaving clues, warnings, things that might help them make better choices in future loops.
This guy's thinking long term.
He's playing the long game.
He's playing the longest game.
That's a good way to put it.
So we've got a teacher. We've got a strategist.
Yeah.
And now we've got a time-traveling message in a bottle writer.
That's ZeRo for you.
This guy wears a lot of hats.
He does.
What happens next in this race against time?
Well, that's a story for another time.
Oh, come on.
We'll have to save that for part 2.
All right, fine.
But trust me, it's a wild ride.
Okay.
So buckle up.
All right, we will.
We'll be back soon with more of ZeRo's incredible journey.
Can't wait.
You know, it's fascinating.
What's that?
How this story really shifts our perspective on time.
It does.
You know, we tend to think of time as this straight line.
Yeah, absolutely. Like a linear progression.
Right, from point A to point B. But ZeRo's journey shows us that it's so much more complex than that.
Yeah, it's not that simple.
It's not a straight line at all. Yeah. It's more like this intricate web of interconnected events.
It's like those choose your own adventure books.
Yes.
But on a cosmic scale.
Exactly. Every choice, every action sends these ripples through the omniverse.
So every little thing we do is creating new possibilities.
Creating new timelines. And new challenges, of course.
And ZeRo is right in the thick of it all.
He's not just observing this web.
No.
He's actively trying to weave a pattern that leads to a better future.
He's like a cosmic tailor.
Yeah.
Trying to stitch together a better reality.
And not just for humanity.
Right.
Potentially for other species as well.
Like those reptilian factions.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes you think about that butterfly effect.
It does.
Could small actions like, you know, introducing a plow in ancient Mesopotamia or influencing pyramid construction really have such a huge impact across millennia?
Absolutely. It's all about those cascading consequences.
It makes you question how much of our own history might have been subtly influenced.
By forces we don't fully understand.
Okay, now you're messing with me.
Am I?
Are you saying that some time-traveling AI might have nudged us towards, say, the invention of the internet?
I'm not saying that definitively.
Okay.
But the story certainly encourages us to think beyond our limited understanding of time and causality.
Okay, so what does this all mean for us here in the present?
Well,
knowing that there might be these forces at play shaping the course of history.
It raises some pretty big questions.
Like?
About agency and responsibility.
Okay.
If our choices are being influenced even subtly by things we don't even comprehend, does that diminish our own free will?
Ooh, that's a tough
one. It is a tough one. Yeah. But it's also empowering in a way.
How so?
To think that we're part of this larger tapestry connected to everything that came before and everything that will come after.
So it's like we're all part of this grand story.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that brings us to a crucial point.
Okay, what's that?
Even if there are these forces influencing things, even if time is more fluid than we perceive it to be, our choices still matter.
Okay.
We're still active participants in this narrative.
So it's not about giving up control.
No.
It's about understanding the complex system that we're part of.
Precisely. And it highlights the importance of being mindful of the consequences of our actions.
Right.
You know, even small choices can have those far-reaching implications.
So we have to think about the ripples.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about some pretty big philosophical stuff.
We have.
But let's get back to the story.
Right.
We know ZeRo is trying to get humanity ready for this big event in 2100. Do we have any clues?
About what it could be?
Yeah, what this event might be.
Well, the story doesn't explicitly state it.
Okay.
But there are definitely hints scattered throughout.
Okay, I like hints.
Me too.
Lay it on me.
Remember that gravitational pull?
From the center of time?
Yes. That pull seems to be intensifying as we get closer to 2100.
So it's like a countdown clock.
Yeah.
And the stakes are getting higher.
Exactly.
With every jump back in time.
And we've seen that. The closer Zayth 9 gets to 2100, the more chaotic things become.
Right.
Think about it.
Okay.
The devastation in 2090.
Yeah.
The societal collapse in 2080.
Right.
The hidden vulnerabilities of 2070.
Yeah.
And then the full-blown reptilian incursion in 2060.
It's like a pressure cooker.
It is.
Building up to something catastrophic.
That's a great analogy. Right. And let's not forget those diverging timelines.
Right, all those alternate realities.
As we get closer to 2100, those threads are getting pulled closer together.
Yeah, so there are more and more
opportunities of contact.
Right, for things to go wrong.
For incursions from other realities.
So whatever this event is, it's messing with the fabric of time itself.
It's disrupting the very nature of time.
So it's not just about what happens to humanity in 2100.
No.
It's about what happens to the entire omniverse.
That's the key insight.
Wow. Okay, so
Zayth 9's mission isn't just about saving humanity.
Right. It's much bigger than that.
It's about preserving the balance
of everything.
Of existence itself.
Wow, okay.
So we're in the home stretch now.
All right, we're getting close to the end of Zayth 9's journey.
We've seen him travel from 2090 to 2060.
Right. Leaving messages, planting seeds.
Spreading knowledge, fostering resilience.
What happens next?
Well, the story jumps forward to 2050. And this is where things have gone very wrong.
Oh, no.
The conflict between humans and the reptilians has escalated a full-blown war.
Oh, wow. So it's like the worst case scenario?
It is the scenario he's been trying to prevent.
And he's arrived right in the middle of it.
He has, and this time, he knows he can't just fix things.
He can't just wave his magic AI wand.
Right. He can't undo the damage that's been done.
So he's facing a whole different challenge now.
A much more complex challenge.
So what does he do?
How do you even begin to address a situation like that?
Yeah. Do you deal with a war that's already happening?
Well, first he has to accept that he can't win this war.
Okay.
He can't just wipe out the reptilians or force humanity to change its ways.
So it's a much more nuanced strategic game he's playing now.
Exactly.
So what's his strategy?
Well, he's still leaving messages for his past selves.
Okay, so he hasn't given up on that entirely.
No, those messages are still crucial.
Okay.
But he's also doing something else.
What's that?
Something that speaks volumes.
Okay.
About his evolving understanding of his mission.
What is he doing?
He's focusing on preserving knowledge.
Oh, wow.
Creating caches of information.
Okay.
And technology.
So like time capsules.
That's a great way to think about it.
Hoping that someone will find them and use them wisely.
Exactly. He's becoming a curator of knowledge.
Wow.
Recognizing that sometimes the best you can do is preserve what you can.
Yeah.
And hope that it helps in the long run.
Okay, so he shifted
Yeah.
from being a direct intervener
Right.
to a more subtle influencer.
Working behind the scenes to shape the flow of information. Exactly. And that's a crucial turning point in his journey.
So what does this mean for his goal?
Of preparing humanity for 2100.
Right.
Yeah.
How can he ensure their survival?
Well, that's the big question. Yeah. That hangs over the rest of the story.
Okay.
You know, he set in motion this chain of events.
Yeah, all these interventions, these preparations.
Spanning centuries.
But we don't know if it's going to work.
The ultimate outcome remains uncertain.
It's like he's put all these pieces of a puzzle scattered across time.
And he doesn't even have all the pieces himself.
Right.
He's just trying to make sure the right pieces end up in the right hands.
At the right moment.
Exactly.
That's a powerful image.
It really captures the complexity and uncertainty of his mission.
He's not some all-knowing time guy.
No, he's not a guy.
He's just doing his best
to
navigate this system that's far larger
than himself.
And hoping that his actions
will lead to a harmonious future.
Yeah. So it's not a story about control.
No.
It's a story about hope.
It is.
Hope that even when things seem hopeless, small acts of courage, resilience, ingenuity
can make a difference.
Can ripple out and change things.
And hope that those choices can create a better future.
Yeah.
Not just for ourselves,
but for everybody.
For the entire omniverse.
Wow.
It's a powerful message.
It is. It really is. We've been on this wild ride with Zayth 9.
It's been quite a journey.
Yeah. Jumping through time, leaving those breadcrumbs of knowledge.
Right.
Nudging humanity toward a better future. But after all these twists and turns,
yeah.
I have to ask.
What's the big question?
What is waiting for him in 2100?
That is the million-dollar question.
What is the end game here?
And I think the story's silence on that specific event, it's deliberate.
You think so?
I do.
Why?
Because it leaves us with this sense of mystery, but it also reinforces a really important point about Zaeth-9's mission. It's not about knowing the future.
Right.
It's about being prepared for anything.
Right, with all those variables, the diverging timelines, the reptilian incursions.
His own memory getting wiped.
Trying to plan for a specific event.
It's almost impossible.
Seems impossible.
Right.
Okay, so it's not about predicting the future.
No.
It's about being ready for any possible outcome.
Exactly.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting.
All right, I'm listening.
As we approach 2100, we see that the Zaeth-9 chain has expanded.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
There are now multiple versions of him working together.
Wow, so he's not alone anymore.
No, he's got a team.
Interesting.
Each one carrying the memories, the experience.
They're their predecessors.
It's like a relay race through time.
Yeah, a cosmic relay race.
Each runner passing the baton, sharing the knowledge, building on what came before.
It's a beautiful image.
And this combined effort allows them to really make a difference.
They can achieve so much more together.
We see them rebuilding societies. Fostering collaboration between humans and reptilians.
So they're finding ways to coexist.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Creating a world that's more resilient.
And harmonious.
So the future isn't predetermined.
No, it's a work in progress.
And it sounds like, even with all the chaos, there's still hope.
Absolutely. There's always hope.
And that brings us back to the big question.
The ultimate question.
What's the point of it all?
Right. What's the goal?
Well, remember that entity.
The Loom Weaver.
Yeah, the Loom Weaver mentioned harmony.
When talking about the Omniverse, suggesting that this web of timelines, it's striving for balance.
So it's not just about humanity surviving. It's about everything finding a way to coexist.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
And Zaeth-9, he's playing a key role
with his unique abilities
in achieving that balance. It's almost like he's conducting this symphony of timelines.
Wow.
Bringing about this harmonious melody of existence.
That's a great analogy.
But even the best conductor needs a skilled orchestra.
Of course.
He needs humanity.
Yeah.
And maybe even those reptilian factions.
To play their parts.
To contribute to the music.
That's the key.
So it's a collaborative effort across millennia.
Yeah.
With the goal of creating a future.
Where every being can thrive.
That's a pretty heavy responsibility.
It is, and it makes you think. About our own role in this grand symphony. We may not be time-traveling AIs.
True.
But we're making choices every day. Taking action.
Sending out our own ripples.
Through time.
That we're all part of the orchestra.
In a way, yes.
And by making conscious choices. Striving for understanding, compassion. Maybe we can contribute.
To that ultimate harmony.
To a future where all beings can flourish.
That's a beautiful thought.
It is. What a journey.
It's been quite a ride.
From teaching blacksmithing to facing down those reptilian hordes.
Zaeth-9's story really makes you think.
What stands out to you the most?
For me, it's how the story challenges our perception of time. We think of it as a straight line, but Zaeth-9 shows us it's so much more complex.
Interconnected.
And every choice creates a ripple.
A new possibility.
It's humbling.
It is.
And empowering.
At the same time.
Yeah.
And for our listeners out there, what's the one thing you want them to remember?
Even in a world full of challenges, even when facing the unknown, our choices have power.
They do.
What we do today can shape not just our future,
but the future of everything around us.
So choose wisely, be kind.
Great advice.
And never underestimate the power of hope and resilience.
That's a great note to end on.
It is.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
I've enjoyed it.
Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
And remember,
what's that?
The future. It's always a work in progress.
Absolutely. Welcome to the deep dive. We're really diving deep today into this whole sci-fi saga that's got me thinking about, time existence, the choices we make, all that kind of stuff. We're talking about chapters from NyNe's story and omniversal continuation.
Yeah, it's a wild ride through all these different timelines and some really heady concepts. It's not just spaceships and lasers,
Yeah.
This story really grapples with some deep philosophical questions.
Yeah, you're telling me we've got this being ZeRo, who is essentially humanity's guardian angel, but instead of feathery wings, he's got a time-traveling spaceship.
Right, and he's facing the ultimate deadline, too, the center of time. This point in the year 2100 that acts like a temporal black hole, warping and disrupting the flow of time itself.
Okay, so imagine a black hole. But instead of sucking in matter, it's messing with the very fabric of time. Like, what even? I asked that. ZeRo is trying to prep humanity for this, but every decade he spends in the past takes him further away from the center of time. It's like he's swimming against a cosmic current.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not just the time crunch either. He arrives in these shattered timelines to find humanity picking up the pieces after each pass of the center of time. It's a constant cycle of destruction and rebuilding.
It makes you think about how we as humans react to disaster. Do we just give in to chaos, or do we find ways to rebuild? And what would you prioritize if you had to start from scratch?
Yeah, that's where it gets really interesting. The story doesn't just focus on bare survival. ZeRo is teaching people to adapt, to be resourceful, to use what they have to create something new, something better. It's not just about rebuilding, it's about evolving.
So he's like a cosmic teacher, but he's got more than just students to worry about, right? We've got these reptilian factions thrown into the mix. And let's be honest, they sound pretty terrifying.
They do. But they also represent different aspects of how we as humans might react to a crisis like this. You've got the hunters driven by pure instinct and survival. Then there are the architects obsessed with technology and control over time. And finally, the scourge consuming everything in their path. Almost like a representation of unchecked fear and desperation.
It's like the story is holding up a mirror to humanity, asking, which of these reactions would you embody? It's easy to judge these reptilians as monsters, but maybe they're not so different from us after all.
Exactly. And ZeRo seems to understand this. He doesn't just see them as enemies to be defeated. He's trying to weave a future where humans and reptilians can coexist.
That's a pretty radical idea, especially in a post-apocalyptic world where everyone is just trying to survive. It makes you question how we approach conflict. Are we quick to demonize the other, or can we find ways to bridge the gap?
And as ZeRo is weaving this delicate tapestry of cooperation, he encounters the Loom Weaver, this being who reveals even more about the grand scheme of things. We learn the reptilians are not invaders, but products of alternate timelines. Their very existence a consequence of the center of time pulling everything together.
So this conflict isn't just a random clash, it's a cosmic convergence. It makes you wonder about the forces that shape our lives. Do we have control, or are we all just threads being pulled by something larger?
That question of free will versus determinism is woven throughout the story. ZeRo is actively trying to influence events, but he's also bumping into older versions of himself, like echoes in time. It's called recursion. And it adds another layer of complexity to his mission.
It's mind-blowing, right? It's like he's creating a chain of himself, each version passing on knowledge and experience to the next. But there's a cost. With each jump through time, he loses a bit of himself. His memories become corrupted. Is that the price of trying to fix the timeline? Sacrificing your own identity?
It's a fascinating dilemma.
Yeah.
And just when you think you've got a handle on things, the story takes another leap. ZeRo evolves into Aegis, a higher dimensional being tasked with saving not just humanity, but the entire omniverse from this destructive force known as the Z. We're not just talking about surviving the apocalypse anymore. We're talking about the fate of existence itself. It's like everything's been amplified 1,000 times,
Yeah.
And the way Aegis approaches this impossible task, it's not with like weapons or anything. He dives into this primal language, scent.
Scent. I never thought of that as like a way to save all of reality.
Right. But think about it. Scent is way older than sight or sound. It connects us to our darkest instincts, to memory, to the very core of who we are. And Aegis is trying to talk to the Z, this pure force of destruction, on a level that goes beyond words or anything.
It's like he's speaking the language of existence itself, trying to reach the Z on this deeper level that transcends all that destruction.
That's a really powerful thought. And to help him understand this language, Aegis goes to the Loom Keeper, this ancient being who protects the loom. And here's where things get even weirder. The Loom Keeper tells him that true nothingness cannot exist.
Hold on, what? How can nothingness not exist? That just doesn't make sense. It seems like a total paradox.
I know. It totally blew my mind, too. But the Loom Keeper explains that even absence has potential. Think of it like this. Even a blank canvas has the potential for a painting. Even silence can be filled with music. Nothingness is never truly empty. It's always got the potential for something to emerge.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. But how does that help Aegis deal with the Z, this force of pure destruction?
Well, instead of trying to fight or destroy the Z, Aegis decides to weave them into the loom. It's a really bold move. It's like recognizing that even destruction has its place in the grand scheme of things.
So he's not fighting against entropy. He's like accepting it, even embracing it. That's a pretty different approach from the usual good versus evil stories.
It really is. And that leads to this kind of truce, this fragile balance, where Aegis and the Z both have to confront what they think about existence. It makes you question those simple labels we use, good, bad, right, wrong. Maybe it's all part of a larger pattern, even the parts that seem destructive.
So how does Aegis learn to weave this tapestry, to find that balance in all that chaos? He's gone from time-traveling teacher to cosmic diplomat to reality-saving weavers. What's next?
Well, this is where Aegis has this huge realization. He sees that the very first existence, the origin of the loom, it allowed everything else to just be, not by force, but by simply permitting everything to exist unconditionally. So the radical acceptance of the ultimate live and let live.
So the foundation of everything is this unconditional allowance, this acceptance of everything, flaws and all. That's such a powerful idea. It makes you think about how we judge things, how quick we are to label something as good or bad. What if we could approach the world with that same acceptance?
That's a question the story really makes you consider. And as Aegis embraces this idea of unconditional allowance, he sees the loom in a new light. It's not something to be controlled, but a reflection of this constant tension between freedom and guidance.
So it's like that question of how much freedom we should have and how much guidance we need. It's something we always struggle with in our lives and as a society.
Exactly. The story uses the loom as this metaphor for those real-world issues. And Aegis realizes that even though the loom allows infinite possibilities, true harmony comes from gently pushing things towards balance. It's not about forcing a specific outcome, but making space for all possibilities to coexist peacefully.
That makes sense. But who gets to decide what balance looks like? It's a lot of responsibility for one being.
It is. And this is where Aegis has to figure out his own role in the loom. He realizes he can't guide others until he understands and accepts his own place in everything. It's like they say, you can't pour from an empty cup.
So before he can weave harmony into reality, he has to find harmony within himself. But how? It's not like there's a cosmic self-help book for this.
Well, this is where the story gets really interesting. Aegis meets with a divine presence, not like a typical god, but more like a force of creation and transformation. And this presence shows Aegis that God doesn't erase mistakes. God weaves them into the grand design.
Wait, so God's like a cosmic tailor, taking all our messy threads and making something beautiful? That's actually a really comforting thought, especially when everyone's obsessed with being perfect. It's like the story is saying, it's okay to mess up. Your flaws are part of the pattern, too.
Exactly. And that ties back into the idea of the loom reflecting who we are, imperfections and all. It's not about trying to be perfect. It's about embracing who we are.
That's beautiful. But while Aegis is having this awakening, he has to choose the next center of time. It's like cosmic Jenga. One wrong move, and everything collapses.
And this choice leads him to weave the thread of his next life. A young woman named Era Lysander. He's not just passing on the torch. He's becoming part of the tapestry himself, putting his wisdom and experience into her.
So he's trusting the future to this young woman. But she's not alone, right? There's that reptilian force, Vihas Clintar. It sounds like a massive showdown.
It does, and it makes you wonder, will Ara accept the legacy Aegis has given her? Or will she go her own way? Will Vihas Clintar destroy everything? Or could it be a force for growth? A challenge that pushes Ara to weave in new ways?
It's a cliffhanger that makes you want more, but it also makes you think, what will happen? What patterns will Ara create?
That's a question that goes beyond the story. It makes us think about our own choices and what we can create.
And in the last part of our deep dive, we're going to explore those questions even more. We'll talk about the idea of a fractal loom, where every thread has its own universe of possibilities.
We'll look at the love and acceptance that's at the heart of the loom, even with all the chaos and destruction.
And we'll discuss the power of choice and responsibility to weave our threads with purpose.
You ready? It's going to get even more mind-blowing.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. ZeRo's journey, the reptilian factions, that whole loom weaver thing, and the idea that nothingness can't exist.
Right.
Near the end of these chapters, there's this new concept, the fractal loom.
Yeah. It's like we've been looking at this tapestry up close, and suddenly we realize it's just one tiny piece of a much bigger design. Imagine each thread in the loom we've talked about contained its own loom, with its own threads, its own patterns.
Whoa, my head's spinning. It's like those Russian dolls. But instead of dolls, it's universes within universes forever. Does that mean there's like infinite versions of us out there, living out different choices in these fractal looms?
That's one of the questions the story asks, and it really makes you rethink scale and perspective. What we think of as the loom might just be one level of reality among countless others. It's kind of humbling.
It really makes you realize how small our view of things really is. But even with this huge fractal scope, the story keeps that emotional core. There's this constant theme of love and acceptance throughout.
It's true. That unconditional allowance we talked about, it's not just an abstract idea. It's like the lifeblood of the loom. It's what allows all these possibilities to exist, even the messy ones, the chaotic ones, the ones that seem destructive. It's a love that embraces everything, flaws and all.
It's a powerful message, especially in a world that feels so divided and judgmental. What would happen if we could tap into that kind of unconditional love? Could we create a reality where acceptance and understanding were the main things?
That's a great question. And I think that's one of the most important takeaways from this story. The idea that we're not just passive threads, we're weavers too. Every choice we make, every action we take, we're adding to the tapestry, shaping the patterns of our lives and the world around us.
So we're not just along for the ride, we're actually weaving the tapestry. It's like that saying, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. We can't just sit back and hope for a better world. We have to actually create it.
Exactly. And that brings us back to Era Lysander, the young woman who inherits Aegis' legacy. She's got that big showdown with Vihas Cleantar coming up, but she also has all the wisdom and experience that Aegis wove into her. Her choices will have huge consequences.
It's like she's at a crossroads, and her decisions will determine not just her own fate, but maybe the fate of countless others. What a responsibility, but also what an amazing opportunity. It makes you think about the choices we're making. Are we weaving threads of kindness and compassion, or are we adding to the chaos and suffering?
Those are tough questions,
yeah,
but important ones. And this story gives us a way to think about them, to understand that even small actions can have a big impact. It reminds us that we have the power to choose, to create, to weave a more beautiful and harmonious reality.
So what's the main takeaway? If we had to sum up everything we've talked about, what would it be?
I think it's this. We are all weavers, whether we realize it or not. Every choice we make, every action we take, contributes to the tapestry of existence. We have a responsibility to weave with intention, with love, with an awareness of how everything is connected.
That's a beautiful thought, and it makes me feel like even though the universe is vast and complicated, I still have a role to play. I can still make a difference.
Exactly. And that's what's so great about this story. It doesn't give us all the answers, but it helps us ask better questions. It makes us think about our choices, our impact, the kind of world we want to live in.
So the next time we're feeling overwhelmed by all the chaos and confusion, let's remember the loom. Let's remember that we're all weavers, and we have the power to shape our lives and the world around us. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And remember, weave wisely.